This is the heartbeat of human services, a peek into the inspiring stories of our community and all things DHS. Join us.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Janice Slagle, your host of the podcast, The Heartbeat of Human Services. And today our guest is foster parent for over 15 years, Shirley Haney. Welcome, Shirley.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, Shirley, you were telling me you've been a foster parent for 15 years. Is that right?
Yes.
With the county?
Yes.
That's great. Well, we thank you for that.
I love it.
And
Gives me the opportunity to be with babies.
Yeah. Who doesn't love babies?
I love them.
And so when you first started, Shirley, did you begin doing emergency foster care for the whole at the beginning as well?
Yes, that's exactly what I started as.
Okay. And just for our listeners, emergency foster care is where children are placed right away when they are first removed from their mom or dad. And usually it's up to 21 days. Sometimes it can be longer. Is that right?
Correct. When I first started, it was 30 days, and then it went to 21, then it went to 14, then back to 21. Yeah. It switched around, but yes.
It switched around. But babies can't really stay at our Jamison Children's Shelter overnight. So
the goal is they want us to be able to pick them up within 2 hours. When they call me, if we can pick them up within 2 hours. That way they aren't stuck.
2 hours. So you may get calls at any time of day or night, right?
Yeah, I've had calls all the way up. I've had calls in the middle of the night. Not too often. But there's been a few.
I bet you've had to go to the hospital a few times, maybe.
Many times. And most of them here in Bakersfield. A few times I've traveled out of town.
Okay, like to the Children's
Antelope
Hospitals.
Valley to Valley Children's in Madera and Children's Hospital, Los Angeles. Delano, if you consider that out of town, too.
Right. Well, yeah, kind of.
A few times.
So, but you, from the beginning, were you also able to care for kids with medical needs, too? Or is that something that's sort of
That's
morphed?
something evolved over time.
Okay.
I'd been doing it maybe 10 years before I got my first medical fragile. And we didn't know who's medical fragile at the time, but over time we found out.
Sometimes you don't know everything about the children when they first come to you, right? So that happens
all
a lot.
the time.
Yeah, I mean, they're babies.
We're the first ones figuring everything out.
That's a lot because when they're babies, not a lot is known, right?
Well, all children, when they come in emergency, we don't know.
Don't know.
And a lot of times the parents aren't willing to share information,
Right.
so it's up to us to figure that all out and start their case plan so that when they go from us, they have a little bit of history to go with them.
Yeah. So, and you just know that they were removed from their parent for some reason. So, there's been some sort of issue, some trauma, maybe drugs in the system, or it could be anything, right?
Correct.
Could
Most
be a
of
lot
the time
of
it's just for some reason they can't go home from the hospital with parents.
Yeah.
And they don't have any other family member to take them home, so we go get them until they figure out
right.
what's going to happen. If there's a family member that can step forward, or if their parents are going to get them back right away, or if they need to go into long-term foster. Yeah. Potentially adoptive home.
So you really have to be prepared for just all kinds of scenarios you must have a lot of different diaper sizes. I don't know. Is that the case, or do you have to go buy them?
I typically go 0 to 3 months.
Okay.
That way I can have a stash prepared.
That's good.
I've gotten a couple that were a little older than 3 months, but that was because they were medically fragile and they were the size of
for their size.
A newborn, even though they were 6 months old. They were malnourished, and so they can fit into the things I had. So it worked out because I only have clothes up to a certain size, so I'm ready to go at a moment's notice.
That's awesome. And so when you started doing this, your family was probably on board with you, right? That's something that
was something very important to me. I wasn't going to do it unless I had my family support.
That's good.
And my boys at the time when I first started, they were 10 and 14. And so I was at the age where I'm thinking, I'm too old to have children again, but I love babies, and then they're not old enough to make me a grandma yet. So this was a prime opportunity to fill that slot, that joy of having a baby in the house. And the kids, my youngest, he kept wanting another sibling, and so it worked out. This was to fill that void. And then we eventually all fell in love with one after doing it for a year and a half, and got to adopt her. So
that's neat.
I started over anyway.
So you didn't
and now she wants me to start again. She's actually 13, and
she's like, Mom, I want
begging
more
me
babies.
to start over. I'm like, no, your brothers are now almost 30, and one just got married. Grandma is on my horizon.
You're grandma now, but you still love the babies.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you're we're catching you right in between. So thank you for coming in. I know you said you don't have any babies right now in your home. So, but as I was saying earlier, this is June is Family Reunification Awareness Month. So we're sharing stories about people, not only families who've reunified, but foster parents who have an understanding of reunification. And, can you just talk about why that's important?
I think people need to understand that foster care isn't adoption. I hear so many people, I'm fostering to adopt, and that's not what foster care is about. Foster care are to help families who are in crisis one way or another and help them get back together. And there are situations, and I don't want to undermine those who want to adopt, because there are situations where we can't reunify for one reason or another. And I'm very appreciative of families who are willing to adopt when all the other sources have been exhausted. And I think that's so important to remember, that we are here to help families get back together, whether it be with the biological parents or extended family member, so that that child can be with their family.
Yes, that's
and if
so
that's
true.
not available, then the
adoption.
that's the second option.
Yeah. So we had Judge Vega on last week. We were talking all about how important it is. And you're right. Kids, no matter what's happened, they want to be with their parents when they're of the age that they really understand, don't they?
Yes.
They really have that desire to be with their parents. So I know you said you'd had 109 babies in your home.
Yes, our last one was 109.
Wow. So how you just have kept track through the years?
Yes, I actually have an album where I put a picture of when they came and a picture when they left. And I have their name and their birth date and the date they came, the date they left, so I can keep track of them.
Do you share that with the next person that has them, or do you just?
That's my album. That's just for me, for my own. That's my
your
way
memories.
It's my memories, but it's also my opening and my closure, so they can move on and I go on to the next family. Well,
it would be neat. I've talked to people who were adopted, and they say, I don't have any baby pictures. I don't know.
That's very important to me. Yeah. I take pictures daily, and I used to, back in the day when we first started, this has been 15 years, I would burn CDs for them to take with them. And now I've taken so many pictures with digital. It's like, they don't all fit on that. So we exchange phone numbers, and I always try to send over a lot of pictures with the family that gets them. I think that's important. Then they can do what they want with them. And I take a lot of pictures without our family in it.
Right. Just so they can have their own
That's for
picture.
them. That way they can have it, that memory.
To look back on. That's so cool. And so throughout your journey, just being a foster parent, are there any success stories where you've been able to see the biological family or see the child go back to the biological family? Being
in emergency, it's very rare that I get to see them reunify. Of 109, I had one.
Okay.
That went directly 3 days later, immediately once I went to court, went back. So that's very rare that I see them back with their family. But what I have had is I'll be at DHS doing visits with babies that I have in my care, and I will see previous parents that are coming in, and they're like, oh, you had my baby, and they now have their child. And that's like such, wow. I'm like, you did it. I told you can do it.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple that have kept in contact with me that reunified, and they contacted me when they finally got their child back. So that's fun. But most of the time, once they leave my care, I don't know what happens unless they go into a foster home that adopts them. And those I've been able to keep in contact with a few. And I've had a few that I kept longer so that their extended family member could get them, because we knew that they were working on it, and they were I say 3 or 4 of them are out of Kern County, and that takes a little bit longer. So I've kept them longer until they can go with their extended family member out of county. And those family members, they'll send me text every now and then with a picture, or they've friended me on Facebook so I can follow them that way. So
the social workers know that if while a child is with you, a family's located, a family member, that you are on board with the idea to just keep them a little longer so they don't have to go to another home.
I make that a
point.
Right? As soon as they call me and they say, we're working on placement, my first question is, do we have any family members that are trying to get them? If they do, leave them in my care, because it's hard. Newborns are hard to move from bouncing them around and attaching to a family member, especially in foster care. A lot of foster families want to adopt babies.
Yeah.
And so when they get a baby placed with them, they make it difficult to reunify with family. And that's not fair to the family members.
Yeah.
And so if I know we have family members that are high potential that they're going to get the child, I just tell the social worker, roll me into long-term.
Yeah.
I will keep them until they can go with their family member, because it's not fair to other foster families to get excited thinking that they're getting a placement.
Right.
That's only going to stay with them short-term.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing that.
That's nice. Do you, what would you say to other foster parents who do have that vision of, adoption? Do you think, what would you say to one of them?
Foster care is not about adoption.
That's your message, isn't it?
That's my message. If all you want to do is adopt, don't go through foster care.
Interesting.
My fear is we need adoptive families, and
Of
it's
course, yes.
I'm scared to say that
No,
comment
I think
because I
it's
don't want to
good.
scare potentially adoptive families away.
Mhm.
But I also do not like seeing these families get their heart broke. They think they're going to get to adopt, and that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
This is about helping families get back together.
Right.
And if that doesn't happen, then we adopt. But I've seen time and time again where people are just heartbroken. They're upset because a distant relative comes forward and takes the child. And I try to remind them that was the ultimate
The goal. And I think even though they have that information up front, it's still hard for them to hear it, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah,
I'll
it's
admit,
true.
with my daughter that we adopted, I had her for a year and a half before we finally adopted. And at the year point when the parents' rights were finally terminated, I started telling friends and family, if they take her from me, this is going to be difficult. And I found out later on, because we got in contact with the biological grandmother, and she said she's in a great home and we support. It would be detrimental to her at this point because she was attached to our family, and they respected that. So I see both sides of the fence. When they're older, it's a little bit different, but when they're newborns and you've had them from newborn to a year and a half, that is difficult on the child too, to move them into a new home. And like the last one I just had, I had him for almost a year and a half. He'll be a year and a half this month. He just left last week. We knew from the get-go that we were trying to get him back with family. And so all along we kept saying, he's going to family, he's going to family. And I still had friends and relatives, are you adopting? Are you adopting? Because I typically don't keep them that long. But we knew all along this was to reunify with family. He finally got to go with grandparents, but he had a lot of medical issues, and it took a lot longer to get the training and everything for them to go with him. But it was such a reunion for them to finally have him back in their family, and that was the ultimate goal.
That's great. And you were on board and supported that.
Yes.
And that's so neat.
And I also had support of social workers that when I said, hey, when the time comes that he gets to go, we can't just rip off this Band-Aid because he had medical issues. It would be detrimental. He had a heart condition. And the stress and trauma of switching from one home to another is harsh on a healthy child.
Right.
And so they worked really hard we worked on 2-hour visits together. And then after we'd done that for like a month, once a week I'd go over there. Once they got their medical training, they started doing 2 hours without me there, 4 hours without me there, 8 hours without. We worked it up so that when it came time for him to go, he was in love with them. I was in love with them. It's a happy reunion, and he wasn't stressed or traumatized. And I'd like to see that happen more often, but so many times foster parents get so attached to the child, they don't help that transition.
Yeah.
And so social workers do have to just rip them out of their care because you're not going to help. And that, if I could say anything to foster parents, the best thing you could do for that child is to help with reunification and not make it difficult. If you help with reunification, you have a better chance of maybe staying involved in that child's life. If you make it difficult, they're going to slam that door on you, and you're not going to see them ever again.
Yeah, that's good advice.
I'm your host, Allison, and I'm interrupting today's podcast to highlight permanent positions available at current DHS. The following positions are available: Social Service Worker 4 and 5 in multiple locations, Social Service Worker 1 in multiple locations, and Social Service Worker 2 in Bakersfield, Human Services Aide, Office Services Specialist in multiple locations and bilingual, Human Services Technician bilingual, Office Services Assistant bilingual, and Administrative Coordinator. Apply online today at kerncounty.com under the Careers tab. Thank you for listening, and now back to the podcast.
During the process where you're finding out all this information, were you able to have team meetings where this was all kind of discussed, or was it just you and your social worker talking back and forth? You know how they have the child and family team meetings?
We didn't have a lot of team. We were very open. Everybody was
talking about it.
Yeah,
the way.
I talked with the biological parents, the grandparents. We had each other's phone number. It was very open.
That's wonderful.
Situation. We worked together.
That's good. You don't always see that, sometimes.
And that's unfortunate.
I know.
And I saw a lot, and I'm grateful that DHS is open again. But during COVID, when we were all out in the parking lot and we couldn't come in, and I know we were keeping everybody healthy, it really closed those doors to where we couldn't communicate with the biological family as much as we do when we sit in the
just on the Zoom or on the Teams or whatever.
And
that's a little
really
harder.
And it was very
it was a challenging
cold.
time for everybody. Yeah.
So I'm glad we're back in and everybody can start talking to each other again.
Yeah,
and hopefully work together to help these families out. And it is fun when I see a family and they see me and they don't look at me as you're the foster parent. They look at me as you're the one who took care of our baby, not because they're mad at me. And I've had over 109. I've not had a single biological family not like me. And it's not because I'm saying something about me so wonderful. It's a matter of I'm supporting them. I'm here for them. And I tell them that right off the get-go. I'm not the one who took your child from you.
Right.
I'm here keeping your child healthy and safe until you can get them back. Now, whether they get them back, that's on their shoulders.
Right. That's so good, Shirley. You really probably should be teaching foster parents in some way. Or, I don't know, have you ever done any training with foster parents?
I haven't. But I'm more than open to all the foster parents I talk to. I let them know that that's
it's
the way it goes. Unfortunately, the ones that I've worked with for so long have all been adopting, and they're like trickling off. I'm like, we need some more foster. I need more foster.
Just a foster. Well, and I know a mutual foster parent that you said earlier you stayed in contact with, and I'm glad. Do you think? I think. It seems like it's really good when foster parents support each other and help each other because only you guys understand what you're dealing with, right?
It's a new world out there, and I'm not to undermine other people, but if you aren't walking those shoes, you don't get it. You don't get it. And it's nice when something happens and you can go to another foster family and say, this just happened, and they get it. And so, it's networking is crucial.
Huge.
I know we used to have the emergency foster home, we would have luncheons like once a month or so. And with COVID, that kind of shut everything down.
Yeah.
And I've talked with a couple of them and we're just like, we missed those. That was our time to network, exchange phone numbers. And if I get a call and I'm not available and the social worker, well, do you know anybody? Well, we network. I'm like, well, I know this and this person are empty right now. Call them. Right now, we aren't
not even on social media connecting that way. Was that something that was led by our department, or was that okay?
It was something that the emergency unit did, and
well, maybe
I would like to see it back.
Yeah, you should let them know.
I have.
Oh, you have. Okay, keep pushing on, keep knocking on that door. That sounds like a great idea. Yes. I like it. And then we used to also have some sort of a not a non-partnership. It was something Gayla Gibson. Do you remember?
There are groups that are out there that are for the foster families to get together, and those are great. But the emergency world is a different.
It is.
It's a different world when you have children coming and going all the time. Long term, that's a whole nother, and they need each other. And I think those support groups are amazing too. But I've never really gone to them because it doesn't fit my mold.
Work your world.
I'm not keeping them long term. I'm not dealing with the same issues that they would be dealing with. But the emergency homes, it's a different.
Yeah, it is a different world because it's right in the middle of the night, like you say, or you're going here or there, and there's different needs. And have you found certain resources helpful to you when you're caring for the kids with special medical needs? Are there certain resources like
public health nurse?
Public health nurse.
Those are your best friend. Because they're able to, when you can't get meds like you need to, or can't get doctor's appointments like you need to, or you just have a question about something that you're kind of, should I go to the hospital over this?
That's good.
They're amazing. I've had the best public health nurse.
I'm so glad they're partnered here with us at DHS.
Yes.
That's really good. And so public health has been a great resource. And have you had to drive much to hospitals out of town with the babies you've had?
Oh, yes.
Where, like Madeira?
Madeira, I was going at least monthly, if not more, and then he transferred to Stanford, so we were driving up to Stanford for open heart surgery and he had to have a fundoplication surgery up there, so
that's a lot of stuff on you. So I know, like Jessica, our mutual friend, has had to do the same, and you do need the support of each other, of what you're dealing with. And have you how is it when you have to take a child like Tamira? Do you just spend the night there?
Sometimes when he's been admitted. There's times I've gone middle of the day here, get transferred by ambulance there, and we're stuck in the ER until they finally get a room at 4 a.m. You just sit there with them because they can't stay in those gurneys alone. You're by their side all the time.
That's a real sacrifice, and it's
it is.
Important.
This last one, he had such medical issues, he couldn't be left in the hospital alone, because unless he would have been in the NICU, but he wasn't. He was in a regular room, so I stayed by his side 24/7 for a couple months last summer until we got transferred to Madeira, or from Madeira to Stanford, because he was having so many issues. But
so now he's with his grandma.
He's with his grandma. Just got a phone call today from her that he pulled out his feeding tube, and she's on her way to Madeira for her first trip there. I'm like,
wow,
it's not me for the first time. This is something I've been living for the last year. So it was like, I turned to my husband, I was like, it's not me.
Wow.
It's kind of,
you
but
taught
it
her what
felt
you
good that she called me, that she felt comfortable enough to say, hey, this happened. Do I just go or do I call first? I said, call ahead of time so they can be prepared, because you got 2-hour drive. They'll have everything set up so you're not sitting there waiting.
Good. It's so good that he can be with family and people, and that you can stay connected. And are there any other children that you have had severe medical needs, that you have any things you want to talk about with that?
I've had I'd say about 5 total that have been medically fragile, and I know where 2 of them are now.
Okay.
So the future, they're doing good. One, she's amazing. She's a miracle, and that was, she shouldn't have survived according to the doctors, but she's thriving, a little Spitfire 3-year-old now, so that's fun to watch her.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, and then I have friends that have found after, because newborns, we don't always know what the long-term, especially because they're all drug exposed. I don't know how many of mine have become medically fragile down the road because of the exposures that they had, but I've been in contact with a few that are now finding out, autism and Down syndrome or other things that we didn't see when they were first born.
Yeah.
So how many of mine ended up being medically fragile, I don't know.
You don't know. Yeah.
I've had babies that shaken baby syndrome, or babies that kicked in the head, have bruising on the brain, hydrocephalus.
All kinds of things.
Yeah, all kinds of things. But, there's families out there that will take them and love them. And I'm so appreciative of those homes. I get so many people, you're such a saint taking in children. I think the real saints are the ones that take them from me and keep them long term, whether it be family or adoptive foster homes. They're amazing. Those are the ones that are living the life with them.
Yes, right. That's
and they're amazing people out there. I really appreciate them.
So Shirley, what is the reason that what motivates you to do this, all that you're doing?
I love babies.
You love babies.
And I want to see them be successful.
That's great.
I get the comment all the time, so how long are you going to be a foster parent? And my response is, until they don't need me anymore. I can't sit at home. I got my degree in child development. My husband takes care of our family financially. And so I thought, with my knowledge and my ability, I'd feel guilty sitting home not doing this, knowing that there's children out there that need us.
That's so beautiful.
And I say the call out to anybody out there that has that same ability. If you're in a position that you don't have to work and you know how to take care of children, open those doors.
Yeah.
As painful it is to see them go, it's so much more rewarding to see them succeed. It's all worth it.
That's so cool.
Worth it.
And when you look back on your life, you'll be happy that you did something like this, right?
Oh, yes.
For sure.
I don't regret a day of it. There are days that, I'll admit it, when they leave, I cry. There are some that I cry even more over. That is hard. I'm not some superwoman that doesn't have feelings and emotions. I do cry over it, and it's hard. But I also know that if I don't get attached to them, these children don't learn attachment. And that's where we have so much crime in our county, because when children don't learn attachment as a child, they don't have attachment as an adult. They don't have emotions or concerns about other people's things. All they care about is themselves, because they've never had anybody else care about them. And that's where we see so much theft and crime.
Yeah. The not attaching is a big thing. There's a term
huge.
for it. It's like non-attach, just something attachment disorder.
It's an attachment disorder.
Yes, there is an
and
disorder.
So while people say, well, they're getting so attached to you, isn't that going to be hard on them? My answer is, they're attached to me. They know what love is. They know what that attachment looks like. They will seek for that in someone else. If they're just left alone and ignored and neglected, they aren't going to know what to look for, and they're not going to want that. They're just going to be attached to materialistic things, items, and that's where theft comes into effect because they were more attached to having something than caring about the person that thing actually belonged to.
That's good. And some of the training that you probably had as a foster parent, you've learned a lot about
yes.
that, right? Trauma and attaching and all of that. That's good. Because it's do you foster parents have to do ongoing training, right? Every year you have to have 8 hours, I think.
Yes.
So, well, that's so neat to hear your heart for the people, for the children to reunify. I love that. And that is our first number one goal. About 55% of the kids in our care do reunify. So we're hoping that'll keep going up.
I'd love that.
I hope that keeps going up.
And I think if we had more foster parents that work towards reunification, those numbers would be higher.
Yeah.
I think a lot of biological parents, they feel like they can't succeed, and so they give up. And I think it takes not just the social worker, it takes the foster parent who's caring for their child to say, hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
And just being told that makes them work harder.
Right.
I've seen it. I've seen where they've started to fail and slip. I'm like, stop. You can do this.
You can do it. That's
Your
good.
child's depending on you.
Yeah.
And they see me with their child, and I'm not over there saying, I'm taking your child from you. I want to raise your child and wish failure upon them. And I think we see that a lot where you want to adopt. And I see that, financially, maybe I could provide a better life for this child financially. But finances isn't everything.
That's right.
Love is important. And if they love their child, they can raise their child too. They just need to give them a secure environment to raise them in. And we just have to remind them that they can do that. Don't give up. Their child is depending on them.
That's good. So if you're a parent out there and you're listening and your child is in foster care, we hope that you don't give up. We hope that you keep trying, and we are here to support you. And if you're a person out there listening who's considering being a foster parent, we would love to talk to you more. You can go to our website, kcdhs.org, or call 661-631-6204, and we can answer questions about being a foster parent. But thank you so much, Shirley, for sharing your journey of 109 babies.
Thanks for having me.
And for being an emergency foster parent. And sincerely, thank you from the bottom of our heart for what you do. And I hope that you enjoy this time, that you have a little respite from fostering with your family.
Just for a short break, and I'll be back.
Great. So thank you for listening today. That's all for now.
I'm your co-host, Paula Hernandez, and in today's Mindful Minute, we'll be talking about the amazing benefits of the sun. It's summer, and for many people, that means spending time outdoors. And getting some sunlight on your arms and face every day can be beneficial to your body and mind. Those big health benefits come from the visible light of the sun and the vitamin D your body makes when your skin is exposed to the sun. Here are some benefits of sunlight for your health. It can support better sleep, uplift moods, increase energy, improve symptoms of mental health conditions, lowers blood pressure, heals inflammation, prevents cancer, and fosters stronger bones. All you really need is 5 to 15 minutes of sun exposure to get all these amazing benefits. So put on your sunscreen and sunglasses and head to your pool, beach, or patio for some sun rays. This has been your Mindful Minute.
Thank you for joining us for the Heartbeat of Human Services podcast today. We hope you'll join us next time.